The night Itaewon fell silent. A Halloween tragedy. The streets of Itaewon pulsed with life. Neon lights flickered. Music thumped through the alleyways. And over 100,000 people dressed in costumes, laughing, celebrating, poured into Seoul's most vibrant nightlife district. It was Halloween, the first in 3 years without restrictions, and it felt like a city reborn. But no one knew that in just a few hours, the celebration would turn into one of South Korea's worst peacetime disasters. By morning, 159 lives would be lost, hundreds more injured, and a nation would be left in shock, asking, how did this happen? How could a night of joy turn into pure devastation? The warning signs were there. As early as 6:34 p.m. emergency calls started coming in. People in the crowd reported feeling squeezed, unable to move, unable to breathe. It's too crowded. One caller pleaded, I can't get out. But their concerns were dismissed. To officials, it was just another busy night in Itaewon, a place where large crowds were nothing new. But this night was different. This night, the streets were more packed than ever. The crowd was denser, and the situation was growing increasingly dangerous. People kept coming. The alley behind the Hamilton Hotel, just 3.2 meters, 10.5 feet wide, became a deadly bottleneck. Thousands pushed forward, unaware of the pressure building up ahead. Then, at 10:15 p.m., something shifted. A push, a stumble, a sudden surge. In an instant, people began to fall, collapsing in waves. Those at the bottom couldn't get up, couldn't breathe, as the weight of the crowd pressed down on them. It wasn't chaos in the way you might imagine. It wasn't screaming. It wasn't running. It was silent, suffocating, inescapable. Some struggled for air. Others whispered for help. But the force of the bodies pressing down was relentless. By 10:43 p.m., the first CPR attempts began. Rescuers pulled people out one by one, trying desperately to revive them. Some survived. Many did not. The streets that had been alive just hours before were now lined with bodies covered in white blankets. By morning, 159 people were confirmed dead, with over 150 more injured. Friends who had come together for a night of celebration were now separated forever. Nation in mourning. The victims of Itaewon, among the dead were students, young professionals, travelers, and dreamers, many of them in their 20s, full of life and promise. They came from 14 different countries. A stark reminder that this wasn't just a national tragedy, but a global one. A 24-year-old medical student who had dedicated her life to saving others, yet couldn't be saved herself. A 26-year-old aspiring actor, known for his laughter and energy, now forever silent. To teenage friends, inseparable since childhood, now found side by side in the aftermath. Japanese tourist, visiting Seoul for the first time, whose family would never see her again. Among the victims, 103 women and 56 men, 26 foreign nationals, including victims from the US, China, Iran, France, and Japan. A 10-year-old child, one of the youngest to lose their life that night. A gymnasium in Yongsun was turned into a temporary morgue. Families arrived in tears, some holding on to hope that their loved ones might still be among the injured, others bracing for the inevitable. The room was filled with cries, with whispered prayers, with the unbearable silence of those who had no words left to say. How did this happen? The chain of failures. It wasn't a natural disaster. It wasn't a terrorist attack. It was a failure of foresight, of planning, of response. No crowd control measures. Unlike large events with controlled entry points, Itaewon had no official organizers. No one managed the flow of people. There were no barricades, no guidance, no effort to direct the movement of 100,000 people. Ignored warnings. Over 87 emergency calls were made before the disaster happened. Warning of dangerous crowd density. Police dismissed them all. Deadly design. The steep, narrow alley acted like a funnel. Once people entered, there was no way out. Those at the front had nowhere to go, and those in the back kept pushing forward, unaware that they were crushing the people ahead. A delayed response. When help was finally called, it was already too late. Rescuers struggled to reach victims buried under layers of people. CPR was performed for hours, but for many, it didn't matter. The aftermath. A country demands answers. South Korea was plunged into mourning. The government declared a national period of mourning, cancelling festivals and public celebrations. A sea of flowers covered Itaewon Station, where thousands gathered in grief. President Yoon Suk-yeol vowed an investigation, promising reforms to prevent another tragedy. Officials admitted failure, acknowledging that better crowd control could have saved lives. Global leaders sent condolences. The US, France, Japan, China, and many others offered words of comfort. But no words could undo what had happened. 159 families had lost someone that night. Nothing could bring them back. How can we prevent this? Lessons in crowd safety. The Itaewon disaster wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning. Large crowds can be just as dangerous as natural disasters, but there are ways to stay safe. Know your surroundings. Before joining a large event, identify exits, bottlenecks, and escape routes. If it feels too packed, live. Your safety is worth more than a good time. Avoid the center of the crowd. Stay on the edges where you have space to move. The middle is where people get trapped. Hold onto your friends. If you're with loved ones, hold hands tightly. In a dense crowd, even 1 second apart can mean losing each other. React early. If a crowd feels unstable, move out immediately. Don't wait for others to react. Call for help, if necessary. And don't stop until someone listens. If trapped, protect yourself. Cross your arms in front of your chest to create breathing room. Move sideways, not forward. Crowds push toward pressure points. Someone falls, help them up if you can, or form a barrier around them. Never forget. Honor the lost. Learn from the past. Itaewon's story is not just about blame. It's about understanding what went wrong and making sure it never happens again. 159 lives were lost that night. People who should have had another morning, another laugh, another chance to live. The least we can do is remember them, learn from their story, and make sure their loss wasn't in vain. Next time you step into a crowd, look around. Ask yourself, if something happens, am I in the safest place? If I lose my friends, do we have a plan? If the crowd surges, do I know how to react? Because sometimes survival comes down to the smallest decisions, the hands we hold, the steps we take, the awareness we carry with us. Never forget. Never let it happen again.